it's been, in my mind, like amazing. I think I sent this note over to you, but the only thing I'm mad at you about is if when we first spoke, if you just would have said, don't get rid of those clothes that you had from when you were 180, like, don't get rid of those. We're going to get you back into them. That would have been nice.
Here he is.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Richard, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I actually, I just came back from the gym. I just finished my shake. And, so I've got you on the calendar, and then I got to get some steps in because, Shayna's driving me, driving me to, extreme leanness.
Yep. Well, listen, I mean, I'm sort of sitting here spending a wonderful sort of evening, afternoon, going back, speaking to, different people through different parts of their journey and sort of just, I guess, getting some perspective of how people are sort of, finding things. And thank you, firstly, for booking yourself in and wanting to come and spend, a few moments talking to me. I appreciate that. And I guess one of the things I've been always super interested in finding out is getting someone to go back to thinking about where they were before they started, right? So I'd love to sort of reminisce, and now with a bit of hindsight and obviously where you are now, go back and tell me, where you felt looking back now that you were, maybe what you were struggling with, what you wanted to achieve, and then maybe what brought it to your mind or attention that you wanted to, I don't know, get help on the journey, maybe take it to the next level, whatever that felt like for you. I'd love to sort of hear about that again.
Yeah, so I would say for me, thinking back, I would say just thinking about maybe a longer time period, I had been pretty consistently, 190 to 195 in terms of a weight for just, a number of years post-college, and still worked out and ran, and then kind of did a structured diet, lost a lot of weight, where I would say, about 15 pounds, felt really good. And then probably like most folks through the pandemic, it just started creeping up. And, I tried that program again a couple different times and never really had the result. And so I was sort of hovering around that like 195, 196, never getting really above that, but never really moving the needle, down below.
Kind of just bouncing around that same sort of like up a bit, down a bit, up a bit, down a bit.
And I'm sure I had the same thought that probably a lot of people, my age, 50 plus, thought I was like, well, this is just the new reality. Like, this is just my metabolism. This is just where I'm at. I'm getting older. And then you kind of popped up on my LinkedIn, and, I started looking at the stuff, started listening to the podcast. We talked. And then I wish I would have heard the podcast before I was like everyone else that, did that initial interview with you and said, you know what, this is great, but I can do it, right? Like, I got it. Like, I just need to put my mind to it. And then I tell folks all the time, that I talk to about the program, I just thought your approach was like just the best. You were like, Rich, there's no doubt you can do it. You've got the skills, you've got the knowledge, but why don't we just do this? Like, just have your wife take a front and back photo, send it to me, and I'll put a little note in my calendar, and let's check in 6 weeks. And I was like, sure. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I think I'm a pretty strong-willed person, but I was like, I think I reached out to you like, 5 weeks. I was like, I can't do it.
And I remember saying to you at the time, this is quite poignant because for many different reasons. One, I'll speak to many people, every now and again, and someone's like, yeah, look, I think I know what I need to do. I just need to go and do it. And I'm like, we've all heard that. And sometimes I'll say to someone, well, that's even worse, isn't it? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if you know what to do and you've not been doing it, then we've got a bigger problem. But anyway, that wasn't you. And I think we got to the end and you were like, you've got a lot of things in place. And I remember thinking, you've got a lot of good things in place, and we definitely could have came to an agreement. We knew that if we put our help in place, you'd probably get there quicker and easier, maybe something like that. But you also still had that sort of like, I kind of just want to see how far I would get on my own. And I'm like, okay, cool, look, that's cool. And I remember we said to each other, I was like, I'll tell you what, look, let's do this. Let's put at least a little bit of accountability in place. Send some pictures of where you are now, some metrics, something like that. Go off and give yourself 4-6 weeks or something. And if you've gone off and absolutely kicked ass, I'll be the first to applaud you. If at least having had the conversation with us has put something in place that's made you go off and succeed, we're super happy. Normally, regardless of if ever I did that for someone for most of the time, and you can imagine this being true, most people are going to go off and I'm never going to hear from them again. And the reason isn't because people will go off and make a shed load of progress on their own, it's normally because they'd be embarrassed to come back and be like, yeah, it didn't really work, man. Like, I need some help. Because people just, certainly guys, are really not good at doing that. And I remember when you came back, I was like, dude, I'm super proud of you, man. Like, I'm humbled. You'd called me before I sort of came back to find out how you were getting on. And you were very open and honest, said, I think you said something like, I've given it everything I've got. And I think you basically said, I've basically made no progress towards where I wanted to be whatsoever. And I was like, fine. Thank you for being open and honest, because that is normally the biggest step to progress. And quite often for a lot of successful guys, particularly, it's a hurdle to overcome, because the thought that comes to my mind, this is off subject, but it's the same thing. My wife and I were holidaying down in Cornwall many years ago. In fact, no, this was a long time ago. It was before GPS. We were somewhere, maps. It was back in, like, you'd got a map out. Like, I don't know how, it's like decades ago. And we're basically lost and we're trying to follow a map and we know we're fairly close. And my wife's like, there's a person on the side of the road. Should we just pull over and ask? And I'm like, no. We'll work it out ourselves. Which is so typical man, isn't it? It's like, no. Yeah. And she's like, we could just wind the window down and ask them, and we've already driven past. Yeah, so obviously you came back, and then talk to me from your perspective. What then changed? What did we change? What did we implement, take out? What did we do that has taken you from wherever you were and trying stuff on your own to wherever you are now? I mean, first of all, talk me through the progress. What's changed? What's been the level of progress that you've made? Yeah. And then what were the most instrumental aspects of what we did to get you to that place?
Yeah. So for me, I'm trying to think of an expression or an analogy, but like, sometimes having a little bit of information, is good. And then sometimes having a lot of information is like bad.
Overkill.
And just because I'm, enjoy working out and interested, I just had all different sorts of, ideas as to, what should my macros be and what should the breakdown be? And I had been trying to do it on my own. I had sort of started with MyFitnessPal and tracking and just looked at it. And so to me, the biggest change was just having someone say, here's the nutrition plan, right? Here's the number of calories you need to hit each day. Here's the breakdown of that calories between protein, carbs, and fat. Here's a sample meal plan. This is how I want you to eat. You look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a little restrictive. Like, this is like, oh, can I do this? But
yeah,
for me, it was like, it was laid out in black and white. And then the weekly, accountability, check-ins. I just think it's like, for me, it's Wednesday morning. Every Wednesday morning, I know it's coming. I'm like, okay, I've got to put in my weekly scale reports. I've got to send my macro graph over. It's like someone's going to look at this and someone, is going to have comments and feedback. To me, that's been the biggest driver, without a doubt.
I think there's something in both parts there. One, whether we do or don't know how to maybe work something out for ourselves, someone else telling us is a completely different thing, isn't it? If I was to ever go and decide to get on stage again, do I technically have the knowledge to do it? Yes, of course. Would I still hire someone else to coach me through it? Yes, of course. I would far rather someone else tell me what I'm supposed to do, because the moment someone else tells us, inherently we're normally more inclined to follow that direction. So that helps. But then also the accountability. So this would be the thing, again, whether you technically could or couldn't have got yourself to your goal, as in the knowledge part, there's still no one external to you holding you accountable. Now, some people tend to think, I can do this on my own. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But let's be honest, all of the most successful people on the planet in any area have coaches. Every amazing actor that we've ever watched had probably multiple acting coaches. Singers have singing coaches. Michael Jordan had a strength coach, I think. Actually, literally, I forget the guy's. I want to say it's someone Grover. I forget the guy's name, but he had a strength
Tim
coach.
Grover, I think.
Tim Grover, yeah, right. Yeah. Like business leaders have business coaches. We clearly work better when we have people around us who know the journey and can accelerate our results. Yet still, some people want, and again, there's nothing wrong with it, want to push back against that and say, I want to do it on my own. I think there's a degree of human nature wanting to know how far we would get ourselves. There ain't nothing wrong with that at all. But I do also think when we open ourselves up to the direction of others who are further down the road, we then can look back and understand this one equation, which is, in my opinion, we only ever pay for something with one of two things, our money or our time. Now, one of those things, we can refill that tank back up. We can earn more money back. Once we've lost time, it's lost. Now, obviously, short amount of time, but you went away and I think put 5 weeks in, came back and said, hey, look, so that was only a short period of time. Like you realized very quickly in your own mind, whatever you were doing just wasn't quite ticking the boxes. Some people will do that for years.
Right.
Like, some people, and again, no disrespect to that at all, but everybody's different and everybody values certain areas of their life differently. But you clearly valued this particular area, health, wellness, performance, physique, and enough to want to go, yeah, no, this what's happening isn't good enough. I want to go and achieve more. So
alphas, I interrupt this show with a simple message. This show is here to benefit you and your progression to the best version of yourself. But not only just you, it's also here to benefit the people around you, your loved ones, your friends, other alphas in your vicinity. So why not do a really cool thing today? Something that I would thank you for and maybe someone else would. Share this podcast with at least one other alpha out there who you know would benefit from it. Why not share the information, share the ability for someone else to grow? I'm sure they would thank you. I 100% would absolutely thank you. This podcast only grows by our listeners, our followers doing amazing things like giving us 5-star reviews, downloading podcasts, subscribing, and then, of course, sharing it with other people. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Share it with one person, and, of course, drop us a 5-star review, download the podcast, and, of course, subscribe. And now back to the show.
Talk to me through the results. What's so from where you were when we spoke that original time, and then when you came back to me five sort of weeks later. Talk to me about the progress that you've seen, physique-wise, health-wise, like mental performance. Like, give me a sort of an overview as to what things you've seen progress.
It's been, in my mind, like amazing. I think I sent this note over to you, but the only thing I'm mad at you about is if when we first spoke, if you just would have said, don't get rid of those clothes that you had from when you were 180, like, don't get rid of those. We're going to get you back into them. That would have been nice. But so I think I started at 196. I'm 176 right now. Yeah. So.
And would you say that weight drop is out? That's no muscle loss, right? That's just body fat that's come off you.
Yeah. This is. I mean, I don't think I've ever been leaner and as defined and as muscular as at this point, anytime, even when I was a teenager or in high school, college. So it's just been really consistent, slow and steady progress. Like pound and a half, 2 pounds, in those early weeks, at the very most, but just, step by step. Yep. You talked about it on a podcast. I, read the Atomic Habits book by James Clear. Yeah. Like it's that I kept telling myself this, or I kept like thinking about this in my mind, like, okay, it's an iceberg and it's melting, but like all that change is happening underneath. And, and then for me, I just did monthly, like sort of progress pictures. So we just do, I can go back on my phone and I can look at October, November, December, and just see these, these changes. So, yeah,
man, it's so cool. And I think a lot of people get hung up on like everybody wants quick progress. Like, and one of the questions someone might, just before someone says yes to coming on board, they're like, and how long will it take me to get to my goal? And I'll sit there and go, you've just asked me the one question that I can't answer. Right. I'm like, I know that we know what we're doing and I know that our program works. You're the unknown here. Now, we know that we can get you in line and make it happen, but you've got to do it. So I can't answer the question. And I always sit there and think, I'd love to be able to give someone an answer. I think if I could give someone an answer, I'd have the keys to something that no one has the keys to, right? And so I think, I certainly think that sort of not wanting to go through the process just to get to the destination. Now, I said to, interestingly, Annie, who I spoke to just a few moments ago, I said, the person who enjoys walking will get further than the person who enjoys the destination. Mm-hmm. So in other words, when we are only focused on, I just want to get to this point, we want to speed up and we're not really interested in actually the steps that take us to get there. When we get really good at just doing the stuff, so that's, I get really good at, making sure that my sleep is in place and I monitor my stress and, my food is where it needs to be and I'm making progress in terms of the gym and if I get really focused on that, everything else will just sort itself out over time. And we get less actually bothered about the result because we know the result's coming and we know that we're just going to move the goalpost again anyway and the goalpost again anyway and the result becomes arbitrary. It's just a thing to focus on, but we're going to move that. What we get really good at is actually doing the thing, whatever that might be. If someone wants to become a really good swimmer, they know the goal is to probably swim faster, but they're not thinking about swimming faster. They're thinking about their strength, how lean they are, how they enter the water, what their stroke is like how do they turn at either end. They're focused on doing that. The getting the faster just happens. And I think what a lot of people get too focused on is, so how quick will I get to the goal? How much? Someone asked me the other day, how much will I lose per week? And I'm like, I really wouldn't worry about that. And they're like, yeah, but that's what I'm here for. And I'm like, actually, I disagree. It's not what you're here for. Getting to where you want to get to is, and I use the analogy of, we could get someone to a goal, as I say, a body fat losing goal. Let's say we could get someone to a goal in 6 months, but they would have to come back 2 years later and do it all again. Or we could take 12 months to get someone there and they'd never have to do it again. What would somebody take? And most consciously aware adults at that person are going to go, I'll take the 12-month one, please. We're like, right. So now don't ask me the question how quick it's going to happen. Ask me the question, can we get you to the place and will you ever have to do it again? Because then most people understand that in terms of health and wellness, people are going kind of around in never-ending circles. And again, that's not a criticism. I certainly did that for many, many years before I guess I just started to educate myself and a few things clicked in place. And all of a sudden I was like suddenly you start to kind of go, kind of get this. It's actually not as complicated as I thought. I just need to stop changing everything and actually just stick to a plan. Dude, I'm so it's been such a cool journey. So what's next for you? Like what would you say? I mean, here we are at sort of the crossover of a year, which is always an interesting point to sort of put goals in place. But where do you see where are you heading now? What's the sort of next phase for you? What are you hoping to, like, for example, if we were speaking this time next year, what do you think you would have had to have ticked off to then say that 2024 had been a success?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely I want to stay around this level, and obviously I've talked with Shanna about it. So, I've got a week off next week, holiday. For me, another interesting thing is I've now come to enjoy the deload week. I'm not sure I've ever really, took deload weeks. I'm not sure, like I was always trying to outwork maybe a bad diet or, So that's really good. And then I've got another trip coming in March, another kind of, spring break, vacation. So I think we're gonna have a little bit of maintenance period and then really try to, maybe grind towards, I wouldn't say like competition level physique, but like, try to get myself as lean as possible. I mean, this is like, I feel like I'm learning all the time. Like, we talked a little bit about that because the thought was, let's just try to push. We'll push here, into December, and when the calories went from here to here, I just mentally went, So I felt like at least now next time I'll know like what I'm in for, and I think I can be more laser focused. And then after that, I think be a good opportunity to. To try to maybe, work on just adding, I know it's super hard, but, just stay healthy, add a little bit of muscle, and then just keep staying focused on the journey. Yeah.
I think certainly when sometimes if you're in that dieting phase and that to push on a little bit, there's going to be a drop in calories and an up in expenditure as well. And sometimes it can nearly break you. You're like, I remember going through preps, and I remember one of my coaches saying, I'd given it everything. Like I'd be, and we were like 3 weeks out. He's like, right, now you need to drop the hammer. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you think I've been doing for the past, like, I'm like, what else have I got? He's like, well, you're going to have to find more. And I was like, right, okay. In other words, it just means more focus on absolutely everything. In other words, making sure recovery and everything, stress, sleep, and rest are in place, so that I can up my expenditure, so that I can just pull my my food down a bit and just like basically grind into further fat loss. Now we're talking at that point about getting to like 4 or 5% or something like that, but it can. I remember distinctly. I was like, "What do you think I've been doing for the like? I've been giving it everything." He's like, "You're gonna have to find more," and I was like, the phrase was, "We'll find out how much you're prepared to suffer." And I was like, right. No one had ever said that. I was like, right, that's an eye opener. And so I think if you've had a taste of that, at least what mentally it requires to sort of go to that point, because it does have an effect on then mental alertness, mental energy, business, like family, like it has an effect on those areas. And, we never want to we never, unless someone completely wants to, but we never want to push someone into a place where other areas of their life start to suffer for this one arbitrary goal. So there's always a balance. And sometimes people say, and sometimes I agree, that to go off and achieve amazing things, there can't be a balance. Like they're just, you go and speak to, I mean, you speak to any high level athlete and they'll be like, what do you mean, what balance? There is no such thing as balance. Same with any high level business person. But then I think there's chapters of that. I think there's like a chapter where, maybe there's existential growth in a business. It's like, right, I can't deal with any of that stuff over here. I can now only focus on this thing for now. That's not balance. But that chapter can't last forever. Then there'll be a chapter, definitely high performers that we speak to understand that at some level, that one, being a high achiever isn't a balance, but it doesn't mean it's lopsided in one direction all of the time. It seems to sort of move along, which I suppose if you then spread that over a couple of decades, it's kind of balanced. It just went through chapters and phases as we went. But listen, dude, I'm gonna let you get on with your day. I know you've probably got other meetings coming up. You're a busy guy. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and thank you for booking some time to come and talk to me. I've really appreciated it. It's been really nice to see your progress. I'll be keeping a close eye on how things go, over the course of the rest of or next year. And obviously, if you need me, you know exactly where I am, man. But listen, have a lovely time with the family. I wish you guys all the very best, and hopefully, I'll get to speak to you again at some point. All right.
All right. Same to you, Andy. Thanks.
Cheers, man.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.